All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started as people start to join. And we want to thank everyone for being here today. And thank you for engaging with us as we tackle some of these topics, these important topics, not only to you, but to our members. So today I have helping me Dorothy Swan, Dot Swan, who is on our team, as well as Sandy Kofi, who is on our EPO team. So I want to thank them both for all of the help they'll be doing in the background while we're doing this in the foreground. All right, so Sandy, if you can go to the next slide, please. And next slide. So I want to welcome you here. This is what we'll be discussing. Unfortunately, one of our speakers will not be able to join us today due to unforeseen circumstances, but we will try to bring them back later on in the year because I think it's such an important topic to understand our 1115 waivers, especially as they come up in any renewals or any changes are needed to be made. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of that at the top of the hour, but I hope you stay with us through the entire thing because we have some fantastic presentations today. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right, so please drop in the chat who you are. It is always important that we know who you are and what organization you represent. I know you registered to come to these meetings, but we also want you to share who you are with others that are in attendance. So if you could drop your name, position, organization, and then as our speakers introduce themselves and our team members, because I'm going to pop it over to them as well. If you could answer, what was your favorite childhood snack and why did you love it? And so my name is Natalie Pennywell. I'm the Outreach and Community Engagement Manager here at Virginia Medicaid / DMAS. Me and Reading just had this whole conversation and I flubbed that. But it's Virginia Medicaid / DMAS. And so and one of my favorite snacks, which I have rediscovered lately, was a moon pie, and the banana one particularly. But I also read the back of it, which I did not do as a child, and it says to warm it for 5 to 15 seconds. And me and my brother have been in this situation where we are warming these moon pies and it has changed our lives. So I will never again have it right out of the wrapper. It does not make any sense to me, but it was just, I see the world in a new way. So I'm going to pass it to Dot and let her introduce herself, and then we'll pass it to our other team member.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Dot Swan, and I am an Outreach and Member Engagement Specialist here at DMAS. And so, Natalie, thank you for putting me on the spot. I had to think back a lot of years, but I think one of my favorite snacks, and I still enjoy today, is cheese. My dad loved cheese in his younger days, and I can just remember he hanging out with him outside and whatnot, and then he'd come into the house and there was always like this huge block of cheese that we had, the old kind with the rind on it. And he used to just slice hunks of it off and of course give me my piece. So it's sort of nostalgic, but I love cheese still.
All right, Sandy. Thanks, Dot. Do you want to introduce yourself, Sandy? Can you come off mute? It's okay if you can't. You can just drop it in the chat. I know sometimes when you're sharing slides, it's hard to do. We'll come back around to you. Montserrat.
Yeah, hi everybody. I am Montserrat Serra. I work at DMAS as the Civil Rights Coordinator. And my favorite childhood snack, I remember at a very young age, I grew up in Spain. So the bollicao, that's the name of the snack, bollicao, was my favorite snack. I would finish school when I was age 12 or 13 years old. It was around 5 p.m. So my mom would come pick me up from school. So most of the time she would bring me just a plain sandwich, but when she would bring me a bollicao, I would love it. It was kind of like a piece of bread with chocolate inside. I don't think there's something similar here in the US. So that was literally my favorite snack. It would make me so happy to have one of those after school.
Always good to hear. Okay, what about you, Redeem?
Hello, everybody. So I was trying to decide if I should put it in the chat or actually say it, but I am a partner at Hunt and Andrews Kurth, although most people think that I work at VCU Massey Comprehensive Cancer Center. I don't. But my favorite childhood snack, without a doubt, I think I have two. One would be marshmallows. That's very commercial. My grandmother used to take me to the store, get me some marshmallows. Love, love, love the big puffy ones. But then my great grandmother used to make me cornbread. Oh my gosh, I love a mean cornbread with corn chunks, without corn chunks. Anyway, so if you want to really get close to me, just send me some cornbread.
We'll see if that happens. If you start getting it in the mail, we all know where it came from. So, Reverend Herbert.
Yes, I'm Herbert L. Ponder. I serve as a pastor of the Mount Tabor Baptist Church located in Church Hill area, east end of Richmond. I love that question about snacks. I had to kind of go back, but two that came to mind were Chips Ahoy cookies, which I still enjoy tremendously, and Reese's peanut butter cups.
Oh, Reese's. Oh, I love a Reese's.
I might have to make a run today. I might have to go to the store.
We're all indulging in a little bit of way, in a little bit. So thank you all for that, and I hope that our attendees are also dropping in the chat, introducing themselves as well as their favorite snack. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. Next slide, Sandy. All right, we're going to start with Montserrat today. Thanks, Montserrat. Oh, you're on mute, Montserrat.
All right, I found the button. So good morning, everyone. My name is Montserrat Serra. Thank you very much for the invitation to present today. And my main role here at the Virginia Department of Medical Assistance Services, DMAS, is I serve as the Civil Rights Coordinator. And what my role entitles is basically to ensure compliance with non-discrimination laws and regulations within the Virginia Medicaid program. Specifically, my core responsibilities involve working on language and disability access efforts to support limited English proficient individuals and people with disabilities, in particular to facilitate effective communication among these members. Today, I am thrilled to discuss some of the language and disability access initiatives that we have completed here at DMAS. And pretty much the goal of those initiatives is to enhance access to the Virginia Medicaid program, as I said, for individuals who are limited English proficient and those individuals with disabilities. So as we can see, we can back one more slide, please, where the commitment, yeah. So just to highlight, our commitment is to serve the limited English proficient populations and people with disabilities. Yeah, we can move to the next slide. So this commitment is not only a moral obligation that we have, but it's also a legal one. Since Virginia Medicaid receives federal funding, we are required to follow the non-discrimination laws to guarantee that people who have limited English proficiency and those with disabilities can fully and meaningfully access the Medicaid program. So this slide has a general overview of the most important requirements, those regulations that we follow. I can start with the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin. We also are required under Executive Order 13166 to take reasonable steps to provide access to the LEP populations. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title II, the regulations require state and local governments to provide appropriate auxiliary aids and services where necessary to ensure effective communication with individuals with disabilities. And lastly, one of the regulations that we follow is the Affordable Care Act, in particular Section 1557, which requires cover entities to take reasonable steps to ensure meaningful access to its programs or activities by limited English proficient individuals. We can move to the next slide. So now that we understand policies and regulations, it is important to highlight some of the data so that we know the population that we are serving. So I thought it would be interesting to highlight some of the numbers as far as languages used in Virginia, and also highlight some of the characteristics of disabilities that Virginia Medicaid population has. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but I just wanted to highlight some of them, like, for example, in particular for the language groups, Spanish is the most frequently used language spoken in Virginia, behind English. And we have in Virginia 7%, about 7% of the population that speaks that language. Other frequent use languages in Virginia are highlighted here on the chart, and we have Chinese, Korean, Arabic, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Amharic, Urdu, French, and Hindi. Those are some of the most frequently used languages in Virginia. As far as disabilities, I just would like to highlight that 11% of the Virginia Medicaid population has one or more disabilities. So it's a significant number, which makes us make a commitment to make sure that we properly serve these populations and make sure that they have meaningful access to Virginia Medicaid program. All right, so we can move on to the next slide. So in order to better serve the diverse communities that we have in Virginia, DMAS has initiated several programs to meet requirements and also strengthen our commitment to serve these populations. Let me highlight one by one and summarize what are the initiatives that we have completed so far. And I'll start that in 2020, pretty much when my position was open at the Department of Medical Assistance Services, we first completed an individualized language and disability access needs assessment so that we could understand the needs of our programs towards LEP and people with disabilities. We met with division directors to understand how we were serving these populations and what we needed to do to enhance the experience from these individuals who are limited English proficient or people who are disabled. So after that needs assessment, we developed, implemented, and released the DMAS Language and Disability Access Plan. This is a regulation, this is a requirement, but the purpose mainly of the plan is to make it available to the public and to include what are we doing right now at DMAS to make sure that we meet the language needs, and then to highlight our policies and procedures so that everyone at the agency follows the same protocol to better serve these communities. DMAS is also working on revising and updating Medicaid eligibility notices. This is an ongoing process. And for example, now Medicaid eligibility notices are sent in the top 5 non-English languages, which include Amharic, Arabic, Spanish, Urdu, and Vietnamese. So if you choose one of these languages and you have an active Medicaid case, you would be receiving your eligibility notice in your language. Also, our notices now include a supplement that has language taglines. Pretty much language taglines are brief statements in different languages that explain individuals who are limited English proficient in their own language where they can call if they need to have access to their notices in another language. We also include a non-discrimination notice supplement for all the notices that we mail to our members. That also includes information on how you can get auxiliary aids or any type of alternative communication that it's better for you if a written notice might not be appropriate. For example, sometimes there's individuals that need large print, they're visually impaired and they read better if it's a notice that it's in large print. So we provide information on where they need to call to get those communications that they prefer in a different format. Another initiative that we implemented here at DMAS was the Spanish language skills assessment. We found that we had individuals at the agency that they are bilingual and speak English and Spanish, but we just wanted to make sure, and to meet regulations or requirements, we wanted to make sure that they were competent and qualified with the language. So we implemented an assessment that everyone that works at DMAS and uses their Spanish to communicate with members or with the public, we just make sure that they have the appropriate level to do those communications, even if it's required that they complete translations. At DMAS, we also hire a digital accessibility officer to ensure that all DMAS digital communications are 508 compliant as per the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we have also implemented initiatives related to our contracts with our contractors and sister agencies. With our sister agencies, we have memorandums of understanding, but we have a standard language that we use so that we make sure that these contractors and these sister agencies, they also comply with non-discrimination regulations. And also, we have completed several trainings here at our agency where we make sure that individuals that work or staff are aware on how to communicate, where to find language access resources. So, for example, if someone calls them and they don't speak English, they know how they can connect with an interpreter over the phone. So we have provided training like that, so staff knows how to provide meaningful access to individuals that might call or come visit us. And lastly, one of our latest initiatives is the virtual forum on language and disability access. We had 2 forums already completed last year in 2023, and the next one is going to be on May 14, 2024. And the purpose of these forums is just to engage with other organizations, community stakeholders, the public, so that we can touch on topics that relate to language and disability access. For example, on our upcoming forum on May 14, and we can move to the next slide that will have those details. Yeah, so for the 2024 virtual forum, we will be touching on the topic of translations, language taglines, and strategies for identifying frequently used languages. And usually the format of the forum is that we have a presentation and then we have a panel discussion with other state agencies or other stakeholders. So we can brainstorm and go over what are the challenges that we find when trying to serve the LEP communities and people with disabilities. If you would like more information on the forum, there is a link here that you can go, or you can email us. The next slide has our contact information in case you would like to reach to us with questions about the forum. And that's it. I have just one more question for the audience, and I think it's coming, yeah, on the next slide. So I wanted to end my presentation just asking if anyone would like to share a story or an instant where providing language and disability access made a difference. Feel free to put it in the chat, and if you have any positive or good stories to share with us.
Well, thank you, Montserrat. I will say that if you do, we do have a couple of extra minutes. So if you do have either a question or a comment, if you raise your hand, I may be able to take you off mute so that you can ask it live or that you can share an example, a quick example of a success story of providing language or disability access and what that's done for you in the organization that you serve. So I'll take a look to see. Don't see any in the chat. And let me see if I see any of the panelists that are interested in sharing.
I have more of a personal story if there's time for that.
Absolutely.
So when Montserrat was speaking about her background, I got really giddy because I love Spain. I studied abroad in Spain back when I was an undergrad at UVA. And last year, just recently, I had opportunity to go back to celebrate with a bunch of other folks who had done that program over its 40-year history. Again, I wasn't there 40 years ago, but it's been a 40-year history at University of Valencia. But because of that experience, it got me excited again about brushing off my Spanish. And at every opportunity now, no matter where I am, if I see or detect that there's someone who I think, wants to speak Spanish with me, I use it. And it's been such a great way to bond with folks of different cultures. So my sort of personal suggestion here is if you don't know another language, spend some time on Duolingo or Babbel or any of the other resources to learn a different language, because our world is becoming more multicultural. And if you want to be able to communicate and be with and understand all of humanity, I think it's really good just to pick up another language.
Absolutely. And fold that into the practices of your organization's champion for it as well. I see that Julie from Crossover said she can share really quickly some of the things they're doing there. So I'm going to unmute you, Julie, really quickly. And if you can share, I think I've unmuted you. Did I unmute you? I did.
Let's see.
Oh, got a bit of an echo.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, it's an echo though. I don't know why.
Okay. No, I was just
gonna
going to say, so I am a
Crossover
healthcare
Ministry.
ministry. And you guys may know us. We are a charitable clinic, very similar, I think, Health Brigades on. But 80% of our patients in our patient base are non-English speaking for the most part. And so I would say that in our Medicaid population, so about a third of our patient population is active Medicaid.
So Julie, it's like the echo is very pervasive. So do you have two devices on?
Right.
Maybe you can mute one of them.
I only have my computer on, so I don't know what's going on.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we could drop it in the chat because at this point it's hard to understand you.
It's hard to understand.
Yeah, because of the echo. Yeah. Okay. So, and we'll take one last comment from Kayla, unless she has a question. Let me see. Let me go back to her. Sorry. Trying to make sure. Okay. Unmute Kayla. And do you have a question, Kayla?
So I just wanted to feedback as a Latina myself working in this field. I'm happy to hear that we're talking about it. We know that there's a need. In our organization, Aetna, the way I kind of bring my bilingual abilities, Spanish, is we've actually been able to obviously detect that there's a need and know that there's a need, but we've actually been able to implement a Spanish speaking baby shower, and we've noticed that there was a need there for our members, and being able to provide them with the resources in their language, in their native language, has been very impactful. We've seen impact throughout the organization, and the feedback we've gotten from them about how good they feel about understanding their benefits and providing it to them in their native language. So I'm just so happy to hear that we're all that we're doing things for people that have English as a second language.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. We are always
Absolutely.
excited to be able to hear not only about the services that are extended to potential and current members, but the making sure that it's both culturally and linguistically appropriate. So I thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely.
All right. So you may have more that you want to provide. Please drop it in the chat. We want to save some time here to get to our community spotlight, which I'm excited about. For me, it's always imperative that we work with different sectors of the community, especially when it comes to health and making sure people understand their health, can navigate their health, and can be in contact with resources regarding their health. And a wonderful and beautiful example of that is Faith and Facts Friday. And we have two representatives from that. I call it a coalition of faith-based leaders and champions of health in the community. And so we have Rudine and we have Reverend Herbert. And so I'm gonna, they already introduced themselves, but I'm gonna be quiet so that they can share more information about this wonderful resource that's available to the community.
Thank you so much, Natalie. First of all, on behalf of Reverend Dr. Ponder and myself and the entire Facts and Faith Friday community, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to share with DMAS and the community stakeholders here about what the community, about the Facts and Faith Friday initiative. And it's so funny for me to call it an initiative because this really began quite simply with a call. Next slide, please. Again, as I mentioned before, I am Rudine Mercer Haynes. I am a lawyer by training, and the Facts and Faith Fridays initiative began when one of my partners at Hunt and Andrews Kurth had mentioned to me that the new director of VCU Massey Cancer Center, then just VCU Massey Cancer Center, and I will explain why I'm making such a big deal about what the name was then, but that the new person in charge was a Black lung cancer specialist. And when she said, you know, that he was a Black man, I immediately just stopped, right? Because I know that cancer is not something that we talk about a lot in at least the Black community, and it might be true of a lot of other communities. But I know as a fact, growing up as a Black woman, if someone had cancer, you didn't really talk about it. And so when I knew that he was sort of in that role, I thought, okay, I've been in this community for a very long time. I need to do what I could where I sat to introduce him to the Black community. And more importantly, I was focused on introducing him to the Black faith community. So I met with him, and I'm not sure how many of you all know Dr. Robert Wynn, but he is a force. He has this saying that if love and science is wrong, he doesn't want to be right. And he says things like this all the time, which makes him very approachable. But he had two real important passions that were key to who he was as a person. One, he had a strong interest in early childhood development. And two, he was really interested in making sure that the community was made aware of the, innovative, life-saving treatment that cancer centers provide. When he was in Chicago, he was all about trying to close that divide between academic medical institutions and the community. So he really wanted to have community engagement. And so when he told me these two passions, immediately one of my great mentors and former pastors, Pastor F. Todd Gray, came to mind. And I was like, look, I need to introduce you to him. He's a very trusted member in the Black faith community. I need you to let's just have a conversation. Well, all of these sort of preliminary conversations happened, let's say, I don't know, April 2020. And we were trying to have a call. We were trying to meet together. And of course, we were in the midst of this pandemic. And so I finally got a Zoom call together. And we realized there were a lot of great synergies between us all. But, we were like, hold up, like, this is great, we're meeting, but there's some crazy things going on in the community right now with this pandemic. People are scared, they're anxiety ridden, they don't really know what they should do or what they can do to sort of protect themselves. And people were dying. People a very prominent Black faith leader in Richmond, died, shortly thereafter. So I said, hey, no, I didn't say it. Dr. Wynn says, hey, I am a cancer doctor, but I am a doctor, and, I will learn as much as I need to about COVID to make sure that I can make myself available to faith leaders to sort of talk about what's going on and talk about, what we could do, in this moment. Do you want to talk like on Friday? I was like, well, how about at 3? And he said, sure. So that's how the Facts and Faith Friday initiative began, with a conference call. That conference call, I want to say, officially started in maybe May 2020. That call happened weekly for the most part for about almost 3 years, which was crazy. But again, during that time, we just didn't talk about how COVID was transmitted. We didn't just talk about COVID vaccines. We talked about social justice issues that came to the forefront in the midst of, the killing of George Floyd and all the other sort of huge disparities that just became highlighted during the course of COVID. So again, back to the slide. And I know Natalie's looking at me because I'm not quite sure how much time we have here. Again, it started out as a weekly phone call. Again, it was all about the Black faith leaders and congregations getting a handle on what was going on with COVID. That's how it initially started, because if you all recall, the demographic of folks that was dying the fastest or even contracting COVID were Black people. And so that became our focus. During the course of these 3 years, we've had wonderful conversations with, Tony Fauci. We had a great initiative where First Lady Biden came to town. We have talked about how do you protest if and not get COVID. We've covered any number of issues. A number of prominent officials come and sort of talk to us about issues that really affect our communities. So again, that's how we started. And it's been a great collaboration with VCU Massey Comprehensive Cancer Center. And that's happened under the, again, great leadership of Dr. Robert Wynn. And I think a lot, again, I'm not taking all the success of what the Cancer Center has done in getting its comprehensive cancer center status by saying, oh, it was all Facts and Faith Fridays. I think it was part of a greater initiative for Massey to be more involved and engaged in the community and closing that divide and doing what it could to help and support our people in our community. So next slide. Yes, we have transitioned from a conference call to a Zoom platform. That was amazing. So we didn't just have this sea of folks on a call where you couldn't see them. You actually can see the little boxes and the Brady Bunch boxes and see folks, and that's made us closer, I think. We don't have weekly calls. We realized that was probably a lot for our audience members, but we decided to have twice a month meetings. The first meeting is the first Friday, is where it's limited to faith leaders only or lay leaders in their congregations. It's supposed to be a very sacred space so they can talk about issues that are affecting them as shepherds of their flocks. One thing we realized early on during our conversations that it was nice to have smaller groups where people could just really freely express what they were dealing with. We sometimes fail to understand how much pressure is on our congregational leaders. They are humans too. They had to give people their final rites when folks were passing during the pandemic, but yet no one was really catering to their personal psychological, social, emotional needs. So that first Friday is very, very sacred. I'm happy to still be a part of that conversation, although I'm not a faith leader, but I think it's really, really important to make sure to ensure and shore up the health of our shepherds as they tend to their flocks. The third Friday, even though everybody can't come to the first Friday session, folks can come to the third Friday session. That's open. We actually have a session tomorrow, and we're going to be focusing on organ donation. Again, you're probably thinking, well, why are you all talking about that? Well, it's really important, and it's really important for diverse folks to consider donating their organs once they pass, to make sure that their legacies can live on in other people. But yeah, so that's where we are at the present. I'm going to stop talking, but I forgot to say my funny thing about how we all came together. It was a lawyer, a doctor, and a preacher coming together, putting together this initiative. And one of the great people I've had a chance to meet and actually sit in his congregation is Reverend Dr. Herbert Ponder, who's one of the current leaders of the Facts and Faith Friday. So Reverend Dr. Ponder, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Next slide, please. In addition to the great work of Dr. Robert Wynn, attorney Rudine Mercer-Haynes, and Pastor F. Todd Gray, we have this wonderful team of persons who kind of support the work that we're doing. Dr. Arnitha Sutton, Rachel Pierce, and Dr. Jessica Brown. They help to make sure that we keep going. They pull resources together. It really has become a family gathering on these first and third Fridays, because we get real credible information that we can take back to our congregations and share and better be a better place to prepare and support and serve our communities. And so it's just great that we have this opportunity as faith leaders, because we recognize that there is some suspicion at times with certain systems in our community, including the healthcare system. But we also recognize that there's a great level of trust, within the faith leaders and the institutions that are in the communities. And so what a wonderful opportunity that we can get together for Facts and Faith Fridays to get this credible information, to be able to share with our congregations. And so many times on Sunday morning, I would gather and say, well, Dr. Robert Wynn said, Dr. Robert Wynn said, Dr. Robert Wynn said, and that gave us, real good hope, information, so that we knew when we needed to put masks on, how we were to treat each other. And so it's a great, great, great opportunity. I'm thankful for the platform that has been made available to us. Grateful for the VCU Massey Comprehensive Cancer Center. And I love that word comprehensive, because it means that they're touching so many lives in so many ways with so many resources. And not only do we have a wonderful location to go to, but they come to us. And we're grateful that they're able to move throughout their catchment area to bring the services to communities that need that type of support and that type of resource. And so again, next slide, please.
Reverend Dr. Ponder, before you go there,
yes,
could you go back to the previous slide? So one really important example of what Reverend Dr. Ponder was talking about, and bringing the faith community together with institutions, right, was this idea of introducing the importance of clinical trials and the importance of having diverse folks, sign up and participate in clinical trials. This Grail Pathfinder 2 clinical trial, which I encourage you to take a look at. It's actually being conducted at VCU Massey Comprehensive Cancer Center right now. And it's one of those early prototypes of trying to figure out a multi-cancer early detection test. That's a lot of words to say that you get pricked with, you get a blood prick and they run a test. Again, it's sort of in the clinical phase to see if there are any markers of cancer. As you may know, there are only, I think it's 5 screenable cancers at the moment. There are hundreds, thousands of other cancers. And this multi-cancer early detection, phenomena is something that's trying to get ahead of folks being in their cancer diagnosis, because the earlier you can treat, the better prognosis you might have. So I've said a lot of words, but one thing that the Facts and Faith Friday community has been really big on is stressing the importance of clinical trials and making sure, and it's really important that folks who are in the community, the folks who are giving medical care, remember that every demographic should have access to clinical trials, and you should encourage folks to do clinical trials. This Grow Pathfinder clinical trial is available for those who are 50 and over. I think they're still collecting folks to participate. So I think the picture here was a community event we did. I want to say it first. Where's Dwight Jones's church?
Yeah, First Baptist Church, South Richmond.
Yes, First Baptist, South Richmond. All right, I'm going to stop talking, Reverend Dr. Ponder. I'm sorry.
And again, it gives us the language. It gives us the opportunity to let our congregations know how important trials are. And so I'm grateful that Radine shared that information, because again, we always kind of rely on what other people are doing and others, research, but we have to participate. And again, Facts and Faith Fridays has given us the language, given us the access, given us the resource and encouragement to get out and to make contact with our communities. Okay, that final slide. And again, we just want to encourage folks to be a part of it. Again, the first Fridays are just those times when the faith leaders come together. And again, this has been a wonderful platform because of the, someone said to me at the beginning of the pandemic, as we were, isolated in our homes and churches and all of that, they said, well, I guess you're getting a lot of rest now. And the reality is I was working all the time, just trying to, meet needs. But this platform, this opportunity, this gathering has given us the opportunity to pause, to breathe, to take, personal care of ourselves. And so we're grateful for the sacredness of that first Friday gathering. And then for the third Friday, we get to invite others into the family and into the room, that we might get information, once again, that informs our communities, that equips us to be able to share in some very intelligent ways, and to let persons know, particularly in our congregations and communities, that again may be suspect to systems, including the healthcare system, that we have some answers, we have some resources, we have some helps that are available. And so again, thank you so much for inviting us to participate in this process, to share this information.
Absolutely. We do have a question that's already popped up for Faith and Facts. And if you haven't had a chance to pop it in the chat, and if you would like to ask a question live, please raise your hand and I'll try to recognize you. Does Faith and Facts Fridays have specific areas of focus or goals for 2024 that you're working on or focused on, such as clinical trials, or is it very general and it's just responding to the need at the time?
I guess the answer to that question is, Radine, it's actually both, because at times we get very specific and at other times we get very general.
Yeah, so if you would indulge us, I'd love for us to send to you so you can share with the community stakeholders what the areas of focus are for 2024.
Absolutely.
We've been focusing a lot on mental health. We're focusing on, again, always health disparities. I think separately, again, I think during the pandemic, people neglected their health in so many ways because they were worried about COVID. And now there's a huge spike in incidence of cancer. So we are focused on the C word a lot, but I think that's with good reason. So anyway, I could share with you what our specific areas of focus are, and hopefully you can share that with your community stakeholders. Separately, someone asked about languages right now. Again, I feel bad, we've only been speaking in English, but we need to think about how we could reach limited English speaking populations, because I think that some of the resources that we're sharing would be helpful across the community. And then now I'm going to make a shameless plug, because you don't give me the mic and not allow me to do this. So as many of you know, the Monument 10K happens on April 20th. For a number of folks, probably those in the audience, you all have been training with the Sports Backers 10K training schedule to get ready to do your 6.2 miles. Well, this is a big year for the race. It's been in existence for 25 years, but this is a big year for Massey. They've been in existence for 50 years. And there's this Massey Challenge. People are raising money left and right, but I'm raising money. I'm one of the co-captains, co-chairs of the Facts and Faith Fridays Massey Challenge. We committed to raising $3,000. We have $2,850. So what I'd love for you all to do is take a look at the website. Donate if you can. If you can't donate, just show up at the race and cheer us on. I have been running in Las Vegas, Houston, Chapel Hill. Where else have I been? My goodness. Atlanta, preparing for this race. I could tell you later which city I enjoyed running in. Austin. I can tell you which city I did not enjoy running in, but I said too much. Again, if nothing else, remember the Facts and Faith Friday team will be out there in the race on Saturday. And again, Natalie and DMAS, thank you for giving us the opportunity to put a spotlight on Facts and Faith Friday.
Absolutely. And we just have one comment from Kayla again, which I'm assuming is going to be quite quick. And so I'm going to unmute her and she can speak or ask her question really quickly.
I didn't have anything. Maybe I forgot to put the hand down. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries, no worries. All right, well, thank you. All right. So you can go back to muting yourself, Kayla. So we thank you both for joining us, and we thank Montserrat. We focused on accessibility of information and making sure you are able to disseminate that information. And for us, it really is important to show and demonstrate how to do that. Montserrat had a follow-up comment or question. Go right for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to address one of the questions in the chat about availability of the Farsi language for applicants. So I wanted to say that the DMAS website is available in other languages, including Persian and Farsi. So you can access information on the Medicaid program through the website through a language translation tool. Also, most of our outreach materials are also translated into Farsi. And as far as the eligibility notices, those are automatically sent into the 5 top languages that I mentioned before, which they don't include Farsi at this time. We are planning on making more languages available in the future, but at this time, the eligibility notices are sent in Arabic, Amharic, Vietnamese, and Spanish. But information in Farsi can be obtained also if you call Cover Virginia. They have interpretation services. So any type of information you need in Farsi, you can obtain it through also the Cover Virginia call center. Hope that answers that question. Just wanted to make sure.
Excellent, excellent. And if you have any members that need anything translated into a specific language, we also have that available to you as well. And so if you can go to the next slide, please, Sandy. So these are our meetings for the rest of the year. We have one coming up in June, August. We may switch a couple of these topics around, but we're going through a huge re-procurement at this time, and so we want to be able to share more information about that. And so as soon as we're out of this blackout period, we'll be able to do a little bit more of that. So look for information in the next couple of weeks regarding our next meeting, which will be in June 20th. Next slide, please. All right, and as always, we have opportunities for not only you as stakeholders to engage, but for our members to engage. We have a member, a Medicaid MAC, which is a member advisory committee where our members come to represent our over 2 million members and share and understand in topics, but also provide feedback directly to our agency director and her executive leadership team. We just filled the seats for 2024, but we're already thinking through and thinking how we can make sure those who will be vacant at the end of this year, or if we have to fill an emergency seat, we have applications for that. So if you have any members that are interested in serving on this, I know a couple of our members actually here online with us today. If you are interested in having any of the current Medicaid member or recipients or authorized representatives of those members serve in that capacity, please don't hesitate to have them complete an application. We take them year round. Next slide, please. We have 2 websites, and we talked about Cover Virginia, we talked about DMAS. Any changes that need to come to those, we will let you know. But for right now, please continue to explore these resources. Next slide, please. And these are some of the things that Montserrat talks about today, but you can connect with us, but also we provide and support our members through a number of different ways for them to connect to languages, services, and documents. And if they have any questions or need any additional information, they can contact our civil rights coordinator, who still happens to be here today, who is Montserrat. If you can go to the next slide. All right, so if you want to stay up to date, if you want your colleagues to stay up to date, please subscribe to the newsletter that we send out regarding this meeting or any other updates that come up along the way. And then also, if you're just curious about Virginia Medicaid overall all the time, we have multiple channels for you to subscribe to. So you can definitely scan the latter QR code and find out more information about those pathways to gain more information about what's happening at DMAS in Virginia Medicaid as a whole. I think this is the last slide coming up, I believe. Oh no, next to last. Please connect with us regarding social media. It's just another avenue to learn about all the different things that are happening within our agency and across the Virginia Medicaid continuum of services and care. And so we thank you so much for go ahead and engaging with us through those applications and channels, because as we know, we get our information in varied ways. And so we want to encourage, even across generations, for everyone to engage with Virginia Medicaid, however it fits them easily. And the last slide, I believe. And we want to thank you for coming. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your engagement. If you have anything that you would like to share with us, or any information you would like to provide, please don't hesitate to connect to me and Dot. You can reach us at covervirginia@dmas.virginia.gov. We're always happy to take your questions or suggestions for future content. We want to thank our presenters for today. Thank you, Montserrat, and thank you, Rudine and Reverend Ponder, for providing all of this wonderful information and creating a wonderful spotlight on not only language access, but a wonderful example of how we're providing and connecting to our congregant leaders, as well as our congregation members, who may or may not be Medicaid recipients, but are in the space and in the environment that allows for them to access really pivotal and accurate information. So thank you all for attending today. Y'all have a lovely day.
Hey, Natalie, we did have one more question. It looks like in the chat talks about, it says, are template door hangers available for Medicaid unwinding? It says we have a Canvas team.
Our door hangers, we have the template for you to download that has the information on them. You would just have to get them printed. We don't have them readily printed and available. And since unwinding, the season of unwinding technically ends in May, I believe that's the last February, March, oh no, April, this month. We were back in the regular cycle of, renewal on an annual basis. I don't know if that template will be beneficial, but if you are interested in us creating one or something that you can have printed or distributed at a later date, don't hesitate to drop us an email and we'll definitely engage in a conversation about that. We want to support where we can. All right, thanks, Dot. All right, everybody have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.